I remember my first interview with my mission president. We went to the mission home and he just pulled each of us aside one by one and we got to meet with him, and then we sat and talked also with his wife for a little bit. And I immediately just adored my mission president and his wife. They are the epitome of charity. They are both so kind. And I remember one of the first things he said to me was like, wow, like your smile is so beautiful. Like you just have the light of Christ with you. And that was, I don't know, for me just meeting my mission president was the best. And then Hermana Watts was also the best. You know, she just gives you a hug and you immediately feel like she's your mom already. And you're like, yeah, I can do this. Like I feel at home, we're good. And then my first companion, her name is Erika Giron. She's from El Salvador, and she was the best. Like, I loved my trainer, but I was actually in a trio. So I was with my trainer, and she was starting my training and finishing the training of Hermana Fitzgerald. And so that was kind of an interesting, you know, looking back, I'm like, poor thing, like that would have been so hard to be training two new American sister missionaries who had no idea what they were doing. But my first area is definitely one of my favorite areas. So I had 6 total areas, so definitely one of my favorites. My first day, I remember just walking around, and I didn't actually spend my first day working in that area. They sent us to a different area, and they sent all of the new sister missionaries at the same time. So like after we'd had a training in the morning, we went out in this area, and then we all came back and ate dinner, and then the next day was the, they just called them change meetings, but I guess like transfer meetings. In Spanish, you say change instead of transfer, at least in Guatemala. And so, then that's when they like sent us out to our official areas. So my first day, I remember just being like, wow, like they had us get in like this little mini bus, which is essentially like a van that just drives you around. And I remember being like, what is going on? Like, where am I going? And all this stuff. And I was with a sister that didn't speak English on my first day, and my companion didn't really speak English either. She knew a few words, and I taught her a few words. Like I taught her awkward and gross and weird. And so she learned a few things. But yeah, our first area, she actually hadn't been in the area beforehand. They were switching in because elders had been there before. So we were opening this area, the 3 of us together. And it wasn't too big because it was in Guatemala City. But it was incredible. The members there were so nice. I remember immediately we met this family, Familia Garcia, and they had 4 daughters. I'm like, yeah, Lucia, Jose, Ariel, and Michelle. And then they had a son, Jorgito. And all of the daughters were just so incredible. And the parents were so nice, and they just immediately accepted us into their family, and they were really helpful in going out because there hadn't been sisters in the area for a long time. And so they were like, we want to go out and do visits with you. We're so excited to have sisters. We've been praying for you to come. But they were just so sweet. And all of the members in that area were really solid and really strong, and you could tell definitely dedicated to missionary work, and were always giving us referrals of people that we could go and visit. But mostly I look back on that time as one of the times of the greatest amount of miracles in my mission. Because both me and my companion didn't speak Spanish very well, and I can only imagine like the stress that my trainer felt trying to help both of us and be in charge of an area and open an area and a lot of things that would be really hard. I feel like we had such an incredible measure of the Spirit with us. We met people in the most random ways, and we were able to help so many people in that transfer, like come to know Jesus Christ, and then so many of them actually later became baptized, and that was really exciting. Like one specific family I remember, there's a treat called choco bananos. So what it is, they freeze bananas on a stick and then they dip them in chocolate, and it was delicious. And so I remember my companion was like, oh, these are so good, you have to try them. So we just found this random lady who sold them out of the window of her house. And then my companion was like, and left her a pamphlet, I think, for the plan of salvation. And so then we later went back, and my companion, being diligent, my trainer was so diligent, and so she was like, hey, did you ever have a chance to read the pamphlet that we left you? And we kept going back and kept inquiring about it, and eventually they started letting us visit with them and teach them, and they were so prepared to hear the gospel. It was really sweet to watch their conversion as they would come to church and experience different things, and you could just see the way that it would just light up their eyes. It was really special. Or another family, the father was inactive and the wife had never really listened to the church. She was evangelical, and so she was pretty strong in her own religion, but they were actually married, which is essentially unheard of in Guatemala. A lot of people just kind of live together because it's expensive to get married and it's expensive to get divorced if it doesn't work out. And so we met with them for a long time, and I actually kept in touch with them throughout my mission, and I would email Stephanie, who was the wife, and she accepted a baptismal date right after I left the area, and then ended up getting baptized. And I was outside, so I didn't get to go to her baptism, but I got to go to their sealing a year later before I left Guatemala. And so my first area has very, very special and very tender memories for me. So I love Las Victorias. I loved Jorge and Stephanie. But it wasn't one of those right from the bat I was like, yep, she's gonna get baptized. She was pretty resistant, and I remember one of her favorite questions when we taught her about the plan of salvation. She was like, hermanas, ¿dónde está el infierno? She's like, hermanas, where is hell? Where is hell in this plan? Because she's like, I know that it's a real place, because being evangelical, she very strongly believed in there's heaven and there's hell. And so she's like, where are all of the bad people gonna go? Because we're explaining the 3 degrees of glory. She's like, those all sound great. What about the bad people? And so we eventually worked with her and helped her understand, and now she's great with it. But I just remember all the time she would ask where hell was in the plan. So, she was not one of the people where I was like, yep, she's gonna get baptized. But there was a member in the ward that was convinced that she was. He was like, nope, hermanas, I will go with you every single time you want to visit this family, because they are incredible, and she is going to get baptized, and they are going to get sealed. And it was cool because then he ended up actually being able to be one of the witnesses at their sealing. And so he was like, I always knew it, hermanas. I told you. We're like, yeah, you knew it, hermano. Okay. So, it was just a good time.